Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation today. So we're going to spend most of this hour building an application. So I'm going to build using Oracle's Visual Builder Cloud Service, a mobile application from scratch. I have nothing built already. I will take you from an empty application all the way through to a complete mobile application and one you can actually download and run on your phone from wherever you are. Before I start, I'm just going to do a couple of slides just to position the product so you understand, what the product is and what you can do with it. But most of the session today is going to be hands-on. You can watch me building an application. One of the nice things about this is you can try this yourself. You can go to Oracle's website, hit the try it button, and you can start a trial account. And straight after this webcast, you can try to build your own applications using our Visual Builder tool. All right, so let's get going. So who am I? I'm Steve Morton. I'm a cloud native business development leader. That's what I normally look like. It's extremely hot here today, so I'm in a slightly flowery shirt for today's session. But what am I? I'm a developer, right? So I develop applications. I have some applications on the App Store, which you can download and have a play around with. And so this tool that we're about to show you is the perfect tool for me. It's a development tool. It's aimed at developers, and it's aimed at developers that want to create applications, without writing every single line of code. So we call it high productivity rather than sort of low code. I guess the normal term is low code, but really it's about making you more productive. So I can use this tool to create applications, web and mobile applications. I can do all of that without writing code, and in fact, I'm going to do that right now. But the tool is created in such a way that you can write code as well. So it works both in a visual way, and as a developer who's strong in coding, you can drop into code and start coding your application as well. So that's me. I am a developer, I guess, by hobby, and I get to do it as a job as well. I live here in Oxford. So down here you see a lovely picture of one of the buildings here in Oxford. I'm sure a lot of you have had the chance to come and visit. I'm extremely lucky to live in such an amazing city. Actually, that building's quite interesting. It is called the Bodleian Library, and actually, it's just one of the parts of the Bodleian Library. It's not the whole thing. And in this library, it's very interesting. They try to collect every single printed book. So they've been doing that for many hundreds of years. They have a huge library, mostly underground, with just about every printed book. I think there's another one in Washington, DC, but this one is the first and still the greatest in Oxford. I'm busily recreating my childhood in my garage. I'm building arcade machines as a hobby, as well as coding applications. So I have the perfect job here. I get to demonstrate the use of Visual Builder, which is rapid application development, which I'd do for a hobby if I wasn't doing it for a job. There is a Codemotion hackathon underway. I think it's just started. I think we're going to drop the link in the chat. You can ask questions in the chat area. When you logged in, you'll see that in your dashboard. This is a hackathon that you can join in. Let me just click through and have a quick look. Feel free to join in. I think you've got 14 days to take part in this hackathon. Very interesting topic around the low-touch economy. And there's a prize at the end. I think there's €1,000, I think is the award. I'm sure I saw it somewhere hiding away. So feel free to join in that hackathon. It is good fun to do this, and you can actually create something that might add some value to everybody during the new normal that we're all living in today. All right, so let's get on with the topic of today, Oracle's Visual Builder tool. So Oracle has had this product for quite some time. I think it's been in the market for 3 years, so it's quite a mature product. And what it allows you to do is rapidly create web and mobile applications. So here's some examples of applications that we've created in the tool. And you can pretty much create whatever you like. So I've got a nice dashboard here, which is running on a sort of laptop in a full browser environment. We've got an application, a HR application running here on a tablet device. And then we've got a sort of manager's console here running on a mobile device. So you can build all of these applications inside the product. The product does allow you to create responsive applications. So I can create, full screen application that will respond to the size of the device, as you would expect. And I can also create web applications and native applications for mobile devices. So I can create my application once, and then we help you to deploy that to either iOS or Android devices. Visual Builder is part of our Multi-Experience platform. So what do we mean by that? Well, obviously Visual Builder is allowing us to create a user experience, whether that's for our employees or for our customers. And I'm building web and mobile applications, but we have other products in this platform which work very nicely together. First one here, Digital Assistant for creating conversational applications or chatbots. So I can create applications that run in our common messenger applications and allow our employees and customers to interact with our organization through those messenger applications. There's also a very strong voice component. So instead of using messenger applications, I can actually speak to the devices and get information that way. We obviously have a process engine, which is very good at creating applications that run across many different line of business applications we might have in the business. And it has a front-end component for creating forms and having task lists and things like that inside it. And then we have a product called Application Express, which is extremely good at building data-driven applications. It's very tightly bound to Oracle's database and will allow you to create applications extremely quickly that are accessing very large volumes of data and helping the user to search and filter and interrogate that data platform. Underneath that, we have a whole integration platform, which allows me to connect all of these visual experiences with our backend systems, whether they are Oracle databases or third-party databases, whether it's Oracle SaaS platform or third-party SaaS platforms running in the cloud, or whether it's on-premise applications. We really do not mind. We also offer two other backends around blockchain and content. Blockchain, as its name suggests, is a fully managed blockchain platform where you can create your blockchain applications inside our cloud. And then our content platform is has been created to allow you to manage very large volumes of rich content, so documents or videos or images, and make those available to the applications that you're building. So it's a very rich platform. You can start with any one of these products. You might start, as we are today, at Visual Builder, and then extend out across Process and Digital Assistant, maybe into content and blockchain as you see fit. So the products work very nicely together and provide a lot of features that most developers would want to use in their rich applications today. All right, so that's as much PowerPoint as I wanted to do because I want to spend as much time showing you the product as I can. So today we're talking about Visual Builder, creation of mobile and web applications. If you do have questions, do put them in the Q&A part of the dashboard, the question part, and we will have a look towards the end and try and answer as many as we can. All right, let's get going. So here I am in my browser. I've actually logged on to Oracle's cloud environment. Again, you can start your own trial for this. If you would like to do that after this call, just go to cloud.oracle.com and hit the try it button, and you'll be able to sign up for a trial and start to make use of all of these features that we see here. Some of the products are always free. So like our database product, you can start your database up and you can use it forever for free within, I think it's a 20 gigabyte limit that we provide. And obviously we can provide a limit on the size of the CPU, but you can start it up and just use it forever. Other products in this stack, depending on which ones you pick, they have 30-day trials and you can explore and play around. So as developers, there's a lot of fun things to play with here, whether it's storage, networking, compute, our database, Visual Builder, the product we're about to show you is in this stack as well, and you can just access it through the menu structure. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an application, which is a mobile application, which is going to be for a quiz. So we're going to create a quiz application that we can, we could put it up on the App Store. Quiz applications are very popular today. So I'm going to show you how to create your own. You could put it up on the App Store if you want and maybe try and make some money. But really, it's just going to allow me to show the features of the product. A lot of our customers use this tool to create much more sophisticated applications than a simple quiz application. but it will allow me to show you some of the basics. So our quiz application is going to have a back-end database. And in that database, we're going to store the questions, okay? Clearly, I could use that database for something much more sophisticated. Maybe I'm allowing people to register with my application. Maybe my application is going to become massively successful, and I may have many hundreds of thousands or even millions of people registering. Then our ATP cloud database would be an absolutely perfect platform for that. So what I'm going to do is start one. So I've gone into our cloud environment, clicked on ATP, and you can see it gives me an option to create our database. And I'm just going to give it a name. Quiz database, why not? DBAS. It's going to ask me some basic questions about the database that I want to start. It's going to ask me if I want to create an always free one. I'm not going to do that because I've already created a number of those already. And it's going to ask me for a password. So let me just grab a password here, which you can all see. There we go. And then it will start up the database. I think that's all I need to do. Create. So it takes about a minute to create this database. So what it's doing is it's installing the database instance for me, and then it will give me access to that database. Once I've done that, I'm going to set up a table. Once I've set up the table, I'm going to drop into Visual Builder and build the application. So while that's just doing its thing for a minute, rather than us, sit and stare at it for a minute, I'm just going to give you a little bit more information about the product itself. So Visual Builder allows me to create applications visually. So I drag and drop and I build my application. And at the top here, we see a little bit of an example of that. When I'm doing that, we're creating code behind the scenes for you. And that code is in JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. So in effect, it's creating a web application for me. I can visually design, as I said, drop into code. There's a button here which allows me to do that. And I can code away and have full two-way interaction between coding and visual design. The application itself can integrate with back-end data. So in this case, we're going to integrate with our database. And it does its integration via REST. So if you have a REST-enabled endpoint, then Visual Builder can happily connect to it and consume data from it or post data to it, either way. If you want to connect to something that's not REST-enabled, then we have our integration platform that is very rich in its connectivity capability. It runs in the cloud, it's also visual, and will allow you to bridge between REST and non-REST data sources. Applications that we build, I can take live almost at the touch of a button. So you'll see I'll build the application, I can push it into a test environment, test it, and when I'm happy, promote it through to a live environment. I can do all of that very simply at the push of a button. The product itself can be used in a much more sophisticated way. I'm going to show you how to use a product as a single developer, but you can use this product with many tens or hundreds of developers simultaneously and have much more sophisticated development, test, and live environments. So I may have 10, 15 developers working on an application, using our Git source repository to manage their code, all working together and then merging their code together, going through our CI/CD release cycle to many test environments, and then maybe we're going to release to multiple live environments as well. I can have a much more sophisticated experience if I need that. And ultimately, it is zero infrastructure. So I'm doing everything in the cloud. So I don't need to worry about where this code is going to run. Do I need to find a server to run it on? I don't need to worry about how we're going to secure it. I don't need to worry about how we're going to scale it. Oracle is taking all of that ownership for you inside our cloud environment. Okay, let's pop back to ATP and have a look at what we have. And of course, it's still thinking about it. Let's see if it will finish shortly. Let's refresh it, see how we're getting on. Still thinking about it. All right, rather than sit and wait, let's just go back. I foresaw that it might take a little bit longer because I'm running on the cloud today, and I just started one up earlier. So let me just jump into that one. So here's my database up and running. Let me go into the console. Let me go into development, and I'm going to use our Apex interface because it's nice and simple. I'm not a very strong database person. So I'm just going to log in here. Let me get this right. That's we're going the right way. Okay, if I get it right. There we go, I'm in. All right, so I'm into our interface, which allows me as a non-sort of database person to interact with the database environment, create some tables, and do some interesting things. So the first thing I want to do is to create my database. So I'm going to go into utilities, and I'm going to use one of the utilities we have here, which is, sort of a data manager, and I can load data straight into the application. So I'm just going to pick up my file here. What I have in this file is just a very simple database, or it's a very simple table, which has questions in it, the correct answers for those questions, and so on. I only have 3, but you could have obviously many hundreds or thousands of questions here. And what I'm going to do is drag and drop that into my environment over here. There we go. It's read through that table, or that CSV file. It's understood the structure of it. And now it will create a table based upon that. Give it a name, that would help. Quiz. There we go. There we go. So what happened there, it created a table for me, quiz table. Example was the one that I was working on earlier when I was trying it out. It's read through my CSV file, and it's tried to understand the types of data that we had in it and created the appropriate database fields for me. And it's loaded the data, the 3 rows of data. So we have our questions that we're going to use for our quiz. We have the answers. We have a column that tells me which is the correct answer out of the 4 possible answers. Right. Now, this table is sitting inside our database environment, ATP, Autonomous Transaction Processing Environment. And what I want to do is REST enable it. And I can do that quite simply by coming into the RESTful interface and switching it on. The other thing I need to do is come to the table itself and just say, look, for this table, I would like you to enable this for REST. There we go, enable it, yes. I'm going to set authorization to no so that I can access the table without having to log in. And there we go. I have a fully REST enabled database table. And if I just copy that URL and come here and just look at it, you can see this is the JSON response from the ATP database. Right, so I have a database up and running. I have it responding. I have an endpoint set up that responds with JSON for me. So now I can jump across to my Visual Builder. So here I am in Visual Builder. This is my interface to the Visual Builder application, and I'm going to create a new application. Give it a name, quiz example. There we go. And I'm inside the application. This screen is quite useful. It tells me all the things that I can do inside the application. So I can build a mobile app or a web app. I can connect to data sources which are outside of the application, or the Visual Builder application can have its own data source. So if I don't want to connect to an external data source, Visual Builder can have its own, and we call those business objects. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a mobile application. Let's call it quiz. And we give you some templates, horizontal menu, so I can sort of flip between pages by swiping my thumb. Or I might want to have this one here where I click on a button and the menu pops out to the side, or just an empty one. It doesn't matter. I can add these menu structures into an empty application afterwards if I want to do that. And then we give you some example templates. So what's this page going to look like? A dashboard or a form or a list? I'm just going to go empty again. And I'll show you how to create these from scratch. Okay. So here I am in my application, and you can see I get a visual representation of the mobile app, of the mobile device. and I can choose a different one if I want to see how it would look on different devices. And I literally have an opportunity now to take all of the components that you see on the side here. So headings, text, input fields, buttons, images, everything that you would need to build a modern sort of mobile application is on the side here, and drag it onto my visual design, right? There we go. I have a heading, and I can interact with the properties of that on the right. So questions. Yeah. Okay, whatever I want to do. First thing I'm going to do is just go into this title that we have set up for you here, and just set a title, a quiz app. I don't actually want the questions. What I want to show here is a list of questions that we're going to show. And if I go down my components, I see, one of them is a list view. Let me drag it over, and it has a list. We don't know what that list is going to look like just yet, because we have no data in there, right? Let me just do that again. So what we need to do is to populate this with some data. So the first thing I need to do before I populate it with data is to connect to a data source. And over here, I have a thing called service connections, which allows me to do just that, to connect to external data sources using REST. I can actually connect to other Oracle applications here. So one of the advantages, if you already are an Oracle customer, you can connect to Oracle products. We obviously understand them, and if I click this, it will give me a list of endpoints into them. If I have Swagger definitions, I can use this button here, and just point at an existing OpenAPI or Swagger definition, and the application will understand the endpoints by reading through that Swagger definition. Or I can just point at an endpoint. So I'm going to do just that. Just going to take that endpoint, oops, go back into Visual Builder, and just point directly at it, right? There we go. Give this a name. Let's call it quiz questions. Give it a readable name. Quiz questions. There we go. Over here in this tab, I can set up a number of things that I might need to authenticate myself with that endpoint. I've set it up to be anonymous. I don't need to authenticate, so I'm just going to click my anonymous button here. But if I did need to authenticate, there's lots of options here around OAuth 2 and so on to allow me to control the authentication. The last thing I have here is a test. So like a Postman style test. So I can just test my endpoint, and there we go. I get my response. I can say, look, test it as an anonymous user as well. There we go. And I get my response back. So we should be good. And I've created my first connection to an external piece of data. Obviously, I can create many different connections to lots of different external data sources here if I want to do that. And I could create my own data source inside the application using our business objects functionality. So I might have chosen to do that. Questions internal. I'll just quickly show you, and I can add fields here. Question 1, question. It's a string answer, whatever. So I could have done that through our internal data sources if I did not want to connect to an external data source. We are going to connect to an external data source for this demonstration today. Okay, so let me go back to my application. So now I have a connection to my data source here. So I can connect my list to that data source. All right. So to do that, I'm going to use the properties. I'm clicking on the list. I'm going to add data to that list. And here I can connect to our internal data sources, to our business process engine, or to my external connection that I just created. It's asking me how I might want to lay that list out. And then you can see when I made the connection to the data source, it read through the JSON and it's understood, or it's attempted to understand the fields being returned to me. And you can see it's guessed at the data types and things like that to make it nice and easy for me to select the fields that I would like to use in my list. So I'm going to use most of these: the title, the tagline, the question, answer 1, 2, 3, 4, what the correct answer is, and the background. Okay, I'm going to use all of those. Here I can set up any filtering and things like that that I might want before I present my list. And there we have it. Not looking great. We're going to make it look a little bit better in a moment. So what am I seeing here? I'm seeing 3 items in my list, right? The first item here, and then there's a line, second item, and then the third item, which correspond to the 3 questions in our data source, right? So I come back to my database here and just look at the data here. We can see we have the 3, 1, 2, 3 lines of data. And now I'm seeing those here in my Visual Builder list, 1, 2, 3, okay? Doesn't look great. So I want to bring in some images and some things to make this application look a little bit more presentable. So I'm just going to import a file that I have on my desktop here, just with some images and some basic CSS, which is going to control the fonts and the color choices and things like that inside my application. So it's going to go off and just import those images for me. And we're going to use those inside the application just to make it look a little bit more presentable. All right. So what happened? If I look at my structure here, I can see there's a resources area. And in the resources area, I have some images and some backgrounds, which I've just imported. You know, we've got some nice looking sort of backgrounds that we're going to use inside our application in a minute. Okay. The other thing that was imported was the CSS, some basic CSS here, just to control you know, a few font choices and things like that. Okay. So let's go back to our page and just refresh it so it picks up the new CSS. There we go, the page title changed. Just put that back with that. All right. What I'm going to do is show the structure of this page. So one of the nice things in the product is I can see all of the elements of the page here. So you can see as I'm sort of moving through the visual designer, it's highlighting in the structure the things that I am clicking on. And what I'm actually going to do is just delete all of these because I don't want any of them. Okay, I'm going to create my own list. There we go, have an empty area. And I'm going to go through my components and I'm going to pick one that's called a panel. And I'm going to drag it and drop it here. All right, so I see 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 for each row in my data source. And it's just a very basic gray panel. First thing I'm going to do is make that look a little bit better. And I'm going to do that by changing the properties here on the right. In my data source, if I come back and have a look, one of the fields in here is the background. And you can see it says paper or dark wave or whatever. And that's going to control which of my images I would like to show. Okay. So if I look at my images here, I have, you know, paper is one of them here. And it corresponds to the names of my images. So what I'm going to do is bind the field that we have here called background image to that data source. And I'm going to pick the background field, okay? And I just need to do one last thing, which is just to say where these files are located. There we go. There we go. So now the panel knows to go and have a look at the data source, where it has gone here. Look at the field value and use that to control which of the images we're going to show for our background. Okay. I have a sort of corner radius here that we've set up, make it nice and rounded. There we go. Okay, starting to look a little bit more like an almost professional application. All right. So in my quiz app, I clearly want to put the question on here, and I also want to put the answers, the possible answers to my question. So let's do that by using, I'm going to use the header and I'm just going to drag it onto my panel area here. I'm just going to drag and drop a couple of these onto the area that we see here, right? All right. First one, I'm going to bind. I don't want it to be heading. Yeah. I'm going to put some text in here, but I want that text to be driven from my data source. Okay, so I'm going to use my drop down here and I'm going to pick title. Title, choose the right answer. The next one, I'm going to bind to the field that is called question. Yep, VBCS stands for which language, how is data connected, and so on. Now, I've already set up a little bit of branding on my CSS. I'm going to set that to H2. And I've sort of set that to nice white with a little bit of a transparency on it. I'm going to set that one up to H3. You know, absolutely pure white text here. Okay, starting to look good. Now I need to put my answers. Again, I'm going to just use the heading here because it's just displaying text. Nothing too complex. I have 4 answers in my data source. Let me drop them on. 1, 2. Let me drop 2 more. 3. Actually, we dropped 3. I won't drop the 4th one. I'll show you a different way to add the 4th one. And I would like to show the question here, right? Sorry, the possible answer. So again, coming over here, please bind that heading field to answer 1. Bind that one to answer 2. Bind that one to answer 3. There we go. Again, I just want to change the look and feel. I think I have that set up to heading 4. There we go. Okay. So I now have 3 of my 4 possible answers. I did say you can code. I'm doing all of this through our visual design. I'm going to hit the code button. It's going to drop me into code, right? And you can see it's a web application. This is mainly HTML. And I'm just going to copy. I'm just going to code away, right? To my last question. So I did sort of dragging and dropping. Please bind that to answer 4. And I'm coding. The IDE is as you would expect. It's going to pop up help to help me as I go along and do all the good things that we would expect, right? A nice IDE to do, tell me where I'm going wrong and so on. Then I come back to my design. There we go. I just dragged and I just cut and paste inside code, or I could have just coded that button directly in. All right, so I have my 4 buttons. I have my question. I have my 3 questions showing to me. So we're doing all right. We're nearly there. Let's say I want to change the look and feel. I did import my CSS to save me from writing it in front of you. Let's say I want that box to be, you know, rounded to sort of match the rounded motif that we have here. And I can just drop into my CSS. I think it was heading 4, right? Yeah, there's heading 4. Let's just add it in, border radius, CSS, what should we say, 15? There we go. Come back, refresh. And there we go, we've got the sort of rounded box. It's picking up the new CSS setting as you would expect. Now there is a lot more I can do here, right? I'm just showing you the absolute basics. If I click on the all, you know, there are a lot of properties that I can set, right? Classes and styles and all the things that you would expect to be able to set as a sort of web app developer. Okay, so I have my basic application. I think the last thing I'm going to do at the top is I'm going to use one of our sort of visualization components. And you can see I've got Gantt and pie charts and calendars and all sorts of really nice things here. File pickers and triggering the photo functionality on the phone. I'm going to use this rating gauge, and I'm going to drop it onto my heading here. All right, there we go. You can see it's sort of like a star, and I'm going to use that to keep score. Now you can see it's to the right. I actually want it to be in the middle. So I'm going to use one of my layout components. And again, you should be very familiar with these: flex, grid, masonry, and so on. I'm actually going to drop that. And I'm going to drop my rating gauge into the layout component. There we go, and get it set up in the middle of the page for me. So I want it to be vertical, centered. There we go, good. So I now have an area where I can keep score. As people are clicking on the right answer, we can tell them whether they have the answer correct or not and keep score. Right, a couple more things then. So how do we know whether someone has selected the correct answer from our questions? If I click on this heading, everything on the page can have an event. So an event is clearly a touch, someone touched the screen, or if it's a web app, someone clicked on the screen. If it's a web app, the mouse moved over an object, and so on. So let me add an event for that first sort of, well, it's a heading, but it looks like a button. Yeah? And I'm going to have it's a click, right? And that takes me into another part of the application, which is a key part of the application. We call this an action chain. So this is what happens when that event is triggered. So when someone clicks on that first question, I would like something to happen, right? Let me give it a better name. Let's call it answer clicked. There we go. And I can make things happen. And these are all of the things that I can trigger. And there's a lot of sophisticated activity here. Let me start with one of the most simple ones. Just put a message on the screen for me. Answer clicked. Okay. There we go. Now, if I run my application, if I just come back, oops, and just test this application out by going into preview, I can see what happens when someone clicks on here. My action chain is clicked, and it pops the message up. It says error because that was in the notification setting. All right, so something happened. I triggered an event. The event called the action chain. The action chain was set up to display a message. I would like it to do something a little bit more sophisticated than that. So what I would like it to do is, if I come back into my action chain, is to understand which of the 4 buttons were pressed and to understand which is the correct answer. So I'm going to set up some variables inside this action chain. First one is going to be correct answer. Okay. If I spell it right, it's going to be a number. And the second one is going to be the answer that was clicked. It's also a number. Okay. So if I come back to my event, oops, sorry, go back to the action chain. I forgot to specify that these are values that I can pass into the action chain. There we go. Let's give them a default value as well, just to keep things nice and clean. There we go. All right. Now, if I just click back on that event, you can see I can now pass into my event, which we'll call the action clicked chain, these values. So let me do that. First one, I'm going to just type it in. So they clicked on the first of the 4 answers. The second one I'm going to pass in because the correct answer is stored in our data repository, right? So I'm going to ask it to take the correct answer from our database and pass it into the action chain. So let me show you what I mean. I come back to my action browser. First question, VBCS stands for 4 possible answers. The correct answer is answer 4, sorry. So that's all I did is say, pass that correct answer value from the data source into my action chain. All right, so now I can come back into my action chain. And now I can put a simple test. All right, let me delete that. I don't want to put a message. I want to put an if. Okay, if what? If the answer clicked, yeah, is going to be equal to the correct answer, right? So if the correct answer is equal to the answer that the user clicked, then return true. And we will go down the true side of our action chain. If it doesn't equal, it will go down the false So again, I might just decide to put a notification on the screen at this point saying, you know, well done, correct answer. I would like that message to only appear for a few seconds as opposed to stay on the screen forever. And instead of saying error, I'm going to have a nice sort of confirmation. So it'll be green instead of red. And then I'm going to do the same on the, oops, they've got it wrong. Nope, for those of you that play Exploding Kittens, nope, wrong answer. Again, just have it on the screen for a few seconds, but yeah, error, it's an error. There we go. So let's see what happens. So we come along, the user clicks the answer, Visual Builder Cloud Service, and it's the wrong answer because the correct answer is number 4, right? So let's set up our event on all of the answers so that we can allow the person to click the right answer. So that one's wrong. Let me set up an event on the second one. It's a new event. So on click, I want you to call my action chain that I've already written. There we go. And again, I'm just going to map in the correct answer. And in this case, the answer they clicked is number 2. Let me just do that a couple more times. The event, they click on it. That's the action chain I would like you to run when they click. I would like you to pass the correct answer into the action chain. And, you know, just be aware that they clicked on number 3. And then once final time. Click event, run my action chain, pass to my action chain the correct answer. And the number that they clicked on was answer number 4. There we go. So now we should have a pretty working application. Okay, so there's my 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. The user comes along, clicks question for question 1, answer 2. Nope, that's wrong. That will disappear after a few seconds. It's actually number 4. Okay, well done. Which language do we use? In this case, the correct answer isn't number 4, it's number 1. Yep. How is data connected? Not via APIs, but via REST endpoints. There we go. All right, the last thing I'm going to do is have a score. We want to keep score. So I'm going to come into the variables on the page. I'm going to create a variable called score. It's going to keep score for me. Number, there we go. Default value is 0. I'm going to come back to my design app. For my rating, I'm going to bind that to the score. Okay, so every time the score value changes, this will change. How am I going to change that score? Well, through the event, right? So they come down the action chain. If they get it right, I'm going to assign a variable. And I'm going to assign to the variable on the page called score. You know, score equals score plus 1. There we go. And I could do the same going back the other way. If they get it wrong, you know, I could take 1 off. Why not? So score equals score minus 1. And I know you're all shouting at me, it could go negative. So I might want to put an if in, right? If score is greater than 0. It's greater than 0. All right, then we'll take 1 off. Okay. If it's not, we don't do anything. All right, so I'm building up some nice logic here, again without coding. Let's try our application out. Just keeping an eye on the time. There we are, quiz app. If I get the question right, it tells me I've got the answer correct. Plus, I will get, yes, I got a point, right? JavaScript, get another point. REST endpoints, again, there we go. I should be at 3. I should have 3 stars sat there waiting for me when the, there we go. This particular gauge it allows the user to click on it, right? It's quite a powerful tool. So I'm just going to come back to my design app, click on it, go into its properties. One of its properties is just to make it read only. Yeah, make it read only. There we go. Stop the user on clicking on it and changing. All right, I have a fully working application. I need to get this onto my device to test it. So let's do that now. So there are a couple of things that I need to do. I need to come back to my application and hit its settings. First thing I'm going to do is make it anonymous. What does that mean? It means that when I run the application, it will not challenge me to log in through some authentication mechanism. You know, it's a quiz app. I don't need people to do it. It might be that I want people to register and log in which case I wouldn't do that. But for today, I'm just going to make it anonymous. There we go. I'm also going to come here and click on Build Configurations. This allows me to set up the configurations that I need for sort of iOS, you know, the certificates and profiles and so on, so that I can submit it to the App Store and actually download it to a test device, or the app Android. I'm not going to use either of those today because I want to show you our progressive web app capability. I'm literally going to turn that on. And now I can use this application as a progressive web app, which means it runs inside the browser on the user's device, but you know, it will mimic the behaviors and look and feel of a native application. I'm going to come back over here and just import another file. This file here contains the icons that we are going to use on the screen. So when someone puts it onto their phone, it will have a nice icon. It will have a nice splash screen and things like that. So I'm just going to import the images for that. Save me from creating all of the different ones. They should be here for me. So my splash screen, I just imported. Just pick the iPhone one. Oops. There we go. Just hasn't quite refreshed yet. He said, let me just close the tabs. Okay, didn't import. Let me just check the icons. Did I get them? Yeah. Did I import wrong? Yes, I did. Let me just import it again. I think I must have imported it incorrectly. I'll just try it once more. I'm importing the wrong file. There's also an option. Off we go. Import the icons and splash screen images. Take a second. There we go. All right. And now if I just have a look. Let's see, close all my tabs. That's a little bit better, right? So there's my splash screen. My sort of people, welcome to the app. There's my icons, okay? So we'll use that as the screen icons for the application on the desktop. Preview the application. Build it. Okay. I invite all of you to, in a second, there'll be a QR code shown on the right. Feel free to point your cameras at that. Let me just bring up my phone so you can see what I'm doing. Let me just bring it up side by side. Okay, so this is my phone. You can see that. It is my live phone, so I apologize if any messages pop up from friends and family. Let me point it at that QR code. There we go. And it will allow me to access the application. And if we've done everything correctly, we will see the application running on our device. Oops, there we go. Slack messages coming up. There we are. Okay. So I have all my application running on my device, and I can, now interact with it. So what does VBCS stand for? Visual Builder Cloud Service. Tap on it. Here we go, get the right answer. Tap on the wrong answer, I get the wrong answer. Last thing I'm going to do is share that to my desktop. Add it to home screen. There we go. You can see I have the nice icon, add. There's the one that I had earlier, and then the new one, quiz. And if I run it, because it's a progressive web app, it will run, without the navigation. So it looks and behaves to the user like it's a full application. Which language is used? JavaScript. There we go. I have 2 points. There we go. Well, I should have 2 points. You get the idea. All right, so we've gone literally from nothing. When we started this demonstration, I had no data repository. I actually fired up ATP. Took a few seconds to fire it up. There we go. Let me just see. We fired up a whole new ATP service here. We added, created a table to it. We REST enabled the database and the table, which allowed me to access that data through REST endpoints and get the JSON response here. We went into Visual Builder. We created a mobile application which connected to that endpoint. We then created all of the screens. Open it up. Well, we only had one screen for our quiz, which uses the service connection in our list, goes and retrieves the 3 questions in real time from ATP, showing it to me here. And then we created the look and feel with some images, some curved edges, a little bit of CSS for our font choices. And then the last thing we did was just add the events so that when someone touches any of these, an event is triggered. That event drops into our action chain where we're just saying, did they click on the right one? If the correct answer equals the answer clicked. If it does, add 1 to my score, put a little message saying well done. If they clicked on the incorrect one, if the score is greater than 0, because I got it wrong, we are going to take a point away, right? And then put the message up saying, no, sorry, you got the question wrong. And then once we built our application, the last thing we did is made it live for us to test by turning on our progressive app capability, literally just switching the button on. We imported our icons and our splash screen, and then we previewed the application, which created the QR code, point my camera at the QR code, and now I have a fully running application. Let's say I wanted to make that live. I can come into my interface, say, all right, put it into test. Off it goes into test, which I can then share the URL for the progressive app to our test environment for everyone to test. Let's say I'm happy. I can then say go live, publish. There we go. And again, I can share that URL to the live environment. That application is now live. It's highly scalable, highly secure inside our cloud environment, so that you can then upload that to the App Store if you so desire by setting up the iOS and Android build configurations here, or distribute it as a PWA. And allow many hundreds or many thousands or even greater of users to access and make use of your quiz. So that's as far as I wanted to go in my demonstration. We did a lot, but hopefully you can see it was very rapid. I did a lot through drag and drop. I had the option to drop into code wherever I felt the need to code away and do something a little bit more funky than I can do in the drag and drop environment. I could have imported any sort of libraries that I wanted to use that I'm, for animation and things like that, that I might be fond of to enhance my application, and then ultimately make it live. So I'm just gonna have a quick look and see whether we have any questions in our Q&A. Ettore, are you online? Do we have any questions? Ettore, no?
Hello, no, I don't have any question.
Okay. Okay. All right. So in that case, we will bring the session to an end if there are no questions. I'll just do it one more second in case someone feels the urgent need. I'll bring the session to an end. Do feel free to, as I say, go to Oracle Cloud. cloud.oracle.com, and you can start your own trial to access all of the products that we have gone through today, and you can start to explore and to use the products. So thanks everyone, thanks for attending, and look forward to presenting to you again in the future. And if you want to take part in the hackathon, yeah, please feel free to join in and make use of that hackathon, and maybe you'll win the prize. Thanks everyone.